We now return to the Comic Book Syndicate.
Hi guys, we're back here at Detroit Comics. We're talking about Supergirl, the New 52 reboot. Just to give a quick history, in 1985, DC killed off Supergirl in Crisis. Then a year later they said, oh, by the way, she actually never existed. Then a year or two after that they said, we want to bring her back, but
because
she's
she
not
was popular.
She's really popular, but she's not from Krypton because we can't have two Kryptonians. So she's actually a protoplasm creature that can modify herself and make her look like Supergirl. That lasted about 5 or 10 years. Then they said, actually, she's an angel on Earth. And then a couple more years went by and Jeff Loeb said, no, the real Kar-Zor-El's back, but she's actually here to assassinate Superman. Finally, the New 52 reboot came along, and I thought they were going to bring back the real version of Supergirl. But as we can see in this, it's not quite the Supergirl we read in the 1959 story. Jeff, do you want to tell us, what is this Supergirl?
Because in some ways I think it is, like, it feels like it is kind of bringing back some of that, the original. That's interesting that you say it's not the same. For one, she doesn't know where she is and why she's here. Like, she shows up, she lands in the Ukraine, these robots are sent after her, and she's lost. Like, she doesn't know why, and she doesn't understand the language. I think that's sort of an interesting aspect, is that she is very much an alien.
I don't mind updating stories and making them slightly more modern, more adult, but this is literally rebooting the character and completely changing the way in which she shows up, how she interacts with Superman, and...
So
yeah, like the essentials are still there. She is Kryptonian, and she is
from
Superman's cousin.
And
So.
that's about it. In this story,
Sure.
once Superman and Supergirl start talking, what's the first thing that happens?
Okay, well, based on her memory, from what she can recollect from before she woke up in the Ukraine, is that she was looking at her small, almost newborn baby cousin, Kal-El.
Right.
So she's a teenager already, and he's small. They're having a conversation. She's like, wait, I can't understand anybody, but I can understand you. You're speaking like this weird, broken Kryptonian. And also, you're telling me that you're my cousin Kal-El, who I just saw, who's a baby. So she punches him.
So
she doesn't believe him.
Yeah.
This revision was actually used in the TV show. That explains why in the TV show she's older. But I just have to point out, though, I don't mind them modernizing it. I don't mind them putting a new spin on it. But this is not an example of an improvement where Supergirl shows up and says, well, who are you? And he says, well, I'm your cousin. Liar! Well, it's understandable if she thinks he's a liar, but why is her first instinct to punch him? It's not because...
Fair enough.
It's because it's bad writing. To me, it's melodrama. Let's have them fight for an entire issue and then make up at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why my initial reaction to reading this was, even though the art was decent, I absolutely hated this story.
Well,
Jeff?
okay, and I'm not in love with the story, but at the same time, what I think is kind of interesting about it is, whereas in the original, and we were just saying we love that in some ways because it is very much a 1959 comic, and you just kind of, she shows up and jumps out and is like, Superman, my cousin, I'm here, wearing the Superman outfit already, which she is here too. She's forgotten, she doesn't have the memory of any of this. So the idea of like, you show up somewhere, you come out of and you're attacked by 6 robots, and then this man shows up who is wearing your crest, and you're like, I think in some ways the move from like 59 comics to modern comics is in many ways encapsulated with this focus on interiority and this focus on psychology. And if I was an alien who got sent to another planet and showed up, and suddenly there were people showing up and attacking me, like, what would be my reaction? And you say, like, she immediately punches him. Yeah, maybe that's unrealistic, but maybe it's totally realistic. Like, she had just been attacked by 6 robots. So this idea of saying, like, you have no idea what's going on, you're in the middle of a place you don't recognize, you have powers that you don't know that you don't understand, and all of a sudden, and people are coming at you and talking at you in a language you don't understand. Like, how are you going to feel? So in some ways, there's a part of me that kind of digs the fact that they're getting into the psychology of it and trying to figure out, like, wouldn't you be afraid? And if you were afraid, wouldn't you have a flight or fight response?
To be clear, the 1959 story has about 8 pages that have 20 different scenes. This is 20 pages with 2 scenes. But that being said, Jolie, what was your impression of this story?
In the 1959 story, she depended on Superman to help her. 3 days ago, she was her own woman. She was a woman, like a fully formed, grown, doing her own thing woman. And now she has no clue what's happening, what's going on. That kind of story, the 1959 story, I don't know if it would totally fly because she's not 14. So it makes sense with the age of the character. I just gotta get rid of you and I need to figure out what the heck is going on. Like, and I need to do it now, and I'm flying and I can see through walls, and why can I hear all these things? Like, why can I punch you across the planet? Like, this, nothing makes sense to her, and she's lost and she's scared. And like, my first instinct though, that's the thing, if I was that scared but someone was pretty much wearing the same outfit as me, I would be like, oh my god, something familiar.
Well, but you know,
Like, but
I don't know if I would necessarily punch him.
I always warn.
I would
like,
be skeptical.
I always warn my students for like when they say, "But I wouldn't do that." Like, yeah, but I wouldn't do that. But the character is not me.
But you know,
Yeah.
I think the problem was that reading this story, reading this version of Superman, nothing that Superman did or said told me that this was Superman. If I didn't see the symbol on his chest, I wouldn't know it's Superman. Whereas with the classic Superman character, he acted in more noble than everyone else, more heroic, more understanding, more intelligent.
But there is a moment where he says, "We have powers, and so these people can't protect. They don't have our powers, so they can't protect themselves the way we can. And so it's our job to protect them."
I'm just laughing
Like,
because
if
Jolie
you think about it, he's not actually what?
because you just flipped through 3 pages and every page she was punching Superman.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, and the actually,
Come on, that's kind of badass.
What a great story.
that's the other thing too, is that we're assuming that they're fighting, right? She's scared. He's not hitting her. He's telling her, "I want to help you." Like, he's talking to her
Okay,
and he's
so he
being
doesn't react.
rational.
But you also have DC has created a universe where Superman, to his detriment, I think at times, is ultra powered. Like he is godlike. He is sort of undefeatable. Like, and here's someone who can go toe to toe with him, and that's like, in some ways, her fighting him shows that she is as strong as he is. In some ways, who else could she fight that would convince us that she is as badass as she is?
One of the things about this, though, is that, like I said earlier, how Superman doesn't act like Superman, I don't think Supergirl acts like Supergirl.
Okay.
And another writer, Peter David, when he was writing Supergirl in the 90s, he did a story where the original 1959 Supergirl showed up and met the 90s Supergirl. And that was a great idea because it was like, what would happen if the original version of Supergirl that we read in 1959 existed in the 1990s? And Alan Moore did the same thing when he did Supreme, which is take these innocent old 1950s characters and put them in the modern world. So hey, have the modern world be dark and scary and violent, but I don't think we need to change the characters themselves to adapt to that. I think Supergirl should be innocent.
In some ways, you're saying that like the essence of like, because I was thinking about this as I was reading this, I was like, why have Supergirl? Like, what is Supergirl? Like, I answered this before. Like, if you're like in '59, like it was created, I would guess, to court the female reader and give the female reader something. But like now, as we're creating it, like, who is Supergirl? What does she stand for? I mean, I think this is the problem with Superman as well. Like, as you rewrite Superman, like, how do you figure out what to do with him to make him interesting? But like, what is essential with Supergirl? And I think what you're kind of arguing is that it's her innocence and her sweetness that makes her.
That makes her her.
That makes her
makes her-
super.
that
Like
makes her
like in the
Supergirl.
same way that like Superman, when you make Superman dark,
It doesn't work.
it doesn't work
No.
because Superman has to, in some ways, be
Better.
than.
That's why
right.
Superman,
But then how do you make a Supergirl for
Well,
2015?
we were going to come back right after this and talk about a TV show that has bigger ratings than any other comic book TV show. We'll talk about that in a minute, right after this.
The Comic Book Syndicate will be back right after this.